Greetings, Eric. I have to say, you've caused me a great deal of trouble. I write you in accordance with our long-standing agreement. Despite everything you've done, despite your descent into dangerous and lethal debauchery, as an honorable kindred, I remain bound by my debts and obligations, regardless of how you have disregarded your own. And so I settle these debts now with this letter. In my role as the Sheriff of Paris, I was called upon by the primogenitor of the Tremere clan to look into the disappearance of several warlocks in the catacombs beneath the city. It was there that I discovered your handiwork, though I did not know it was you who was responsible for it at the time. A Malkavian deputy with a mastery of Auspex soon would reveal to me that this gore-soaked scene of horrific violence was authored by none other than you. I wish you had told me that you'd done this, so that the investigation could have been directed in a different direction. A caitiff could have been set up for the blame, or a faceless Sabbat raider. I wonder if you are still yourself. In the past, you would have called in your debts to sort this out. Of course, the Eric I knew in the past would have never done this terrible thing in the first place. The Tremere already knew, I suspect. Certainly the word had spread of your involvement in the crime only a night after I'd received my report. Again, you left me with no space to redirect guilt in this crime. Lacking that ability, I offer you a warning instead. Prince Villon is publicly furious, Eric. He has expressed that you have betrayed a century of friendship, that you have fallen to your beast. Seeing the sight of the slaughter, I also do wonder if you are in the grips of Wassail. But I have glimpsed another game afoot as well. Villon has talked about a call for a blood hunt of you, which may be expected. But I have also heard some talk that he seeks to tie other crimes to you as well. Crimes of an occult nature, mystical things involving unnatural creatures and forbidden pacts, blood sacrifice, mysteries and enemies long investigated with few leads. I believe that Villon has in mind to write a story that ties up a great many loose ends with a plausible villain. A figure responsible for more than just these atrocities, but several unsolved mysteries in the domain. And I'll give you one guess, Eric, who he has in mind for that villain. This holds great peril for you. For in doing so, Villon will not simply seek to blood hunt you within Paris or its allied cities, but try to add you to the red list of the Camarilla itself. This list is not a rumor or myth. It is an assassination list well known to the Josians and the Justicars. A list of the most infamous and dangerous kindred walking the earth today. If you will not think of the risks you bring to Amelia or your reputation, then perhaps you will think of your own existence. You may have thought the years that have passed without sanction mean you have escaped notice for this act, but you have not. The years have passed, but with Villon creating a dossier to present to the Justicars containing both truths and falsehoods about your actions. The Red List was created shortly after the Convention of Thorns, and in its original form, served more to settle scores or identify the most dangerous enemies of the newly created Camarilla. Over the centuries, it has evolved into a system of identifying those who are the greatest threats to the traditions, and is a true rogues gallery of infamous canines. This is why they are universally known as anathemas, for they are universally subject to blood hunt. While this secret was once closely held by the Inner Circle and the Justicars, it's slowly been made available to the Josians, and it is from an associate with ties to those Archons that I first learned it. First, you can only be added to the Red List through the decree of a sitting Justicar of the Camarilla. That Justicar puts forward their clan as the one offering the trophy. This trophy can include anything from a fortune in boons, domain in some of the greatest cities in the world, or even the right to diablerize the anathema in some very rare cases. I believe Villon may use his ties to the Toreador Justicar in this case, so be aware of this vector of political attack. When we think of the ultimate enforcers of the Order of the Camarilla, the Justicars and their Archons come most immediately to mind. But in the case of the Red List, there exists a secret police dedicated to purging the kindred of that list that few within the Ivory Tower know about. They are known as Alisters, and their sole purpose is to hunt down the anathema no matter how dangerous or tedious that task may be. Most Alisters are recruited from the ranks of Archons, but there is a notable alternative route for elevation to this position. Anyone who kills one of the anathema of the Red List is press-ganged into service as an Alistair, whether they like it or not. This kindred who thought they were simply doing their duty destroying a random infernalist may learn that their immortality has fundamentally changed, and now they exist in a life of constant danger and hardship, looking for another dangerous creature rather than returning to the normal order of their domain. Though for all the risk that comes from their work, there is a notable perk. An Alistair is immune to the authority of a Camarilla prince. There is a measure of freedom that comes along with such risks that few kindred will ever know. And Eric, when I speak of the immortals on this list, let me assure you, they make your crimes pale in comparison. I only know a few that I am certain, but even this selection is grim enough to give you a glimpse into the horror this Red List addresses. Let's take the ancient kindred Kemenetri, a renegade follower of Set, as an example of one such anathema. This Cainite has violated the Elysium of London, engaged in unclean magics, and possibly consorted with demons. They are, in fact, responsible for the assassination of the Ventru Justicar Michaelis. And not only did they have a role in his death, they impersonated him for years. This violation of the security of the Ivory Tower creates such great risks. The truth of it is still highly restricted, and few know the details. Even fewer know about the vast wealth she was able to steal from the Ventru clan as a whole before she was exposed by the Tremere. She is an infiltrator without peer, feared not only by the Sabbat, but also her fellow Setites, who consider her to be in the grips of some ancient and terrible madness. Another such criminal on the list is Valerius Mayor, a Tremere antitribu and Black Hand operative, who happens to be one of the greatest dabblers in infernalism. It is rumored that Valerius was functionally immortal even before he was embraced, as part of a dark pact with a demon. He has said that he was born during the Roman Republic itself, if you can believe that. This low creature was once a member of the Camarilla, and while a member of the Tremere, he came very close to becoming a major power player within that clan. After his crimes were exposed and he fled to the Sabbat, finding himself on the Red List, this anathema had the boldness to reach out to other members of the Red List with the idea of building an alliance to strike at the Ivory Tower. Imagine this master of demonology making common cause with the mistress of infiltration I just spoke of, and what kind of danger they might represent together. Fortunately, these efforts came to naught because of the self-centeredness of his fellow criminals, who find working with others very difficult. A third anathema to consider is the fanatic Ferox, a militant gargoyle who seeks the annihilation of the Nosferatu clan, and has worked with the dreaded inquisitors of the Roman Catholic Church in the past to achieve that goal. This Cainite is insane, powerful, and, again, a very old threat to the Masquerade in general, and the Nosferatu of the Camarilla in particular. Ferox believes himself to be an angel, and the Nosferatu to be fallen demons because of their unfortunate cursed appearance. Ferox is in some ways a tragic figure, having been originally involved in the liberation of this misbegotten and tortured bloodline of gargoyles. His embrace as a reward from those he had saved had a terrible effect on his sanity, giving him these delusions. The final anathema known to me on this list is another tragic figure, a Nosferatu named Rabat. An old woman at the time of her embrace, she had suffered from great deformity in life. Becoming a Nosferatu was a little respite from the stigma she had suffered while living. Rabat turned out to be a wise and honored kindred among the Nosferatu clan, offering sage advice to princes throughout Eastern Europe and Asia Minor. Moving from Constantinople to Venice, Rabat was confident in the natural immunity of kindred to mortal disease, and felt no reluctance when it came to feeding from those sick of plague. As the Black Death swept through Europe, Rabat fed on the dying, feeling as though a swift end was something of a mercy. What she couldn't know was that the Black Death would have a unique interaction with her. Within this Nosferatu is a disease that is highly infectious to kindred, known as the Scourge. She is covered in ghouled fleas who carry this scourge, which is a warping sickness that shifts and changes through time, but is nonetheless quite dangerous to Canaanites, whom those fleas may bite. Despite her good service, regardless of her kind nature, Rabat is on the red list because she is a walking vector of infection for kindred and kind alike, a massive risk to the Masquerade and Canaanite life, the likes of which have rarely been seen before. I speak about these anathemas as a warning, Eric. You have done great wrong, but you should not serve as a patsy for a variety of unsolved atrocities in Paris for the convenience of Prince Villon. But ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's just or unjust. It matters if it's useful or not useful. I would recommend, in the strongest terms, that you seek to make yourself more valuable to Prince Villon living than dead. I would suggest you offer prestation to the prince, and perhaps to the Tremere, to avoid the grave danger of being placed on this list. It is only a matter of time before the prince has the connections between you and these events fabricated to a quality that will convince a Justicar to move forward. Take advantage of this warning and act swiftly. Naturally, I consider my debt to you paid with this warning. You may pay heed or not, but I have discharged my obligations to you. I hope one day we may meet again, with you being the kindred I once knew, and not the person who left that scene in the catacombs a few years ago. May you turn away from this dangerous path you walk, and find yourself instead working within the grace of God. Sheriff Alexander Yates, Clan Bruja, Paris, 1942.